Hilary joins us now. Hilary Calvert, erstwhile political, social, cultural and media commentator, joins us from her beautiful Dunedin office with all the artwork in the background. What do you think? It must be very hard if you're a sports judge at the Hilary Awards to go, I've got to compare sports, and some are based on technology and some you're riding a horse, for God's sake, and in others it's just the human being. What do you think?
Presumably if it's you're comparing sports, if you're looking for Sportsman of the Year, it has an element of like, who's the current Director General of the UN or something? Is it your turn? Is it your sport's turn? Is it the turn of a Maori or a woman or a somebody who sits down while they play their sport? Because we're very good at sports where you sit on your ass, you know, be it rowing or
cycling,
horses or
yachting,
whatever. So yeah.
Canoeing.
So is it the turn of somebody who sits on their ass, or is it the turn of who knows?
Time.
Or a South Island? I don't know what they're looking for. But I can't see how you could compare them for any reason other than that you could sort of average out the different people.
Well, it's really interesting.
You can't just say anyone.
Well, the Hellberg Awards will be later on this year. Or is it later on this year? They're in, starting, later on this year, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be a woman, not because it's woke, but because the top 3 sporting performances have been done by women. And they are Lydia Ko with the golf, and Elise Andrews with the double gold medals at the cycling at the Olympics, and then another Olympian, Dame Carrington. What's her first name? Sorry.
Lisa.
Sorry? Lisa Carrington.
Lisa?
Right. Yeah. So one of those 3. I mean, any other year, they would stroll in as Sportsperson of the Year, but there they are in competition against each other just for Sportswoman of the Year, let alone the Supreme Award. So it's very hard, but they've all, brilliant sports people in their own right, and it's very hard to judge, but like with like. But then if I was to add motor racing and horse racing and America's Cup to that particular thing, where technology and billions of dollars or millions of dollars worth of money goes into some of those sports and enormous support teams, I don't know if I could do it reasonably. I think it'd always come back to...
And then there's...
Yeah, carry on.
And then there's breakdancing, if you're talking about Olympic sports.
Yeah. Apparently it's one and only. Oh, which reminds me, the Commonwealth Games now are going to be paired back as well. I think the Brits have taken it over, haven't they? And they're going to pair it back after Melbourne pulled out. Do you remember that? Melbourne pulled out because it was too expensive. Yes. They would have had breakdancing, I'm sure, in Melbourne because that's the sort of place that Melbourne is. But, No. So apparently netball and the sevens, sort of all the team sports, look like they're going to miss out of the Commonwealth Games. So they'll be back to swimming and running, which is, of course, what it should be. Listen, moving on. Last week this time, and I don't think you and I discussed it, but you're in the legal area, that's your training. Your husband's an outstanding lawyer as well. You're well ensconced in the media, in the legal fraternity. But the Crown Solicitor, and she's not the Attorney General, she's the Solicitor General, Una Jacos,
yes,
was being held to account, was starting to be held for account, would be a better way to put it, for her prosecution guidelines that were had been released in actual fact over 2 weeks beforehand, but nobody had said a thing about it. It was something that came through media like the Platform, independent media rather than the mainstream media, and through blogs in actual fact, that got its way then into the currency and suddenly became something of a cause celeb. She's back down on those, as I've just said, prior to 12 o'clock on Friday. Tell me, I haven't been a lawyer, so I don't know, but are the Una Jagoses of this world, the Solicitor Generals, are they the big pooh-bahs of the legal fraternity? Are they what they say impactful and influential?
Well, if it's the Solicitor General, and I noticed somebody, when this was being talked about on a platform late last week, said it's all right, they're just suggestions, they're not compulsory or anything. That's just what we would usually call bullshit, because here you go from the Beehive. As noted, Crown solicitors are required to follow the Solicitor General's prosecution guidelines in the conduct of their prosecutions. So the suggestion that they're just suggestions is just complete bullshit. And that came, I think, from some legal people who ought to know better. So that's sort of a lead up to, is the Solicitor General a senior there? Perhaps come from the
Well, that came from the
QCs,
Maori
KCs
Lawyers
as well.
Association representative, that particular claim. So when I had her on the show last week, she was representing the New Zealand Maori Lawyers Association, and that was her argument. Oh, it doesn't really matter. There are only guidelines. You don't have to listen to them. And as I said to you, why would you put out guidelines if you didn't have to listen to them?
Well, it turns
in addition
out
to which, the Solicitor General is the one. Well, the Solicitor General is also the one who appoints the Crown prosecutor. So I don't think she's going to appoint anybody who's not going to listen to her guidelines, is she?
No, but even if she might have been, their requirements, and this comes out from the Beehive. So if the Beehive, who puts out things about such things, doesn't know, who knows? So that is a bit concerning, that people who were part of the process of putting them out there thought they were just suggestions of the sort that you didn't need to bother your pretty little white head about. But another thing that I found in the middle of that discussion, which was quite interesting, was that the guidelines predicate themselves on these are people who are disadvantaged in the legal system, and you should think carefully about prosecuting brown people or other disadvantaged people or something. But in the middle of that, it said both the, I don't want to say perpetrators, but whatever, the person you might be thinking of prosecuting, and the victim are more represented than others, out of proportion to the population in these bad statistics. So I'm interested to know if she's going to put a new thing out again because she was so harassed about the last one, or whoever replaces her. Then how does she make the Maori victims better off by not prosecuting the Maori perpetrator? So where does that go? And if you say, do you say, for instance, that if it's a Maori victim, then you can not prosecute or not prosecute a white person who did it to them? Or the mind boggles as to how you carry out that. I mean, I think there's a point in saying the reason why these guidelines don't have to be followed is that they can't be, because they're a heap of crap. But they are obliged to be, so I just don't know how you'd follow that lot of stuff. We'll see what she comes up as an alternative, or, as I say, her replacement, if it turns out to be that.
Yeah, it's just a bit of background there. She was appointed by Chris Finlayson, who was the woke fifth columnist within the Keys National Party at the time, and is responsible for a lot of damage consequently.
He wouldn't. Just a wee story about Chris.
Yeah, go.
But just a wee aside. When I was briefly in Parliament, Chris Finlayson, and I virtually never spoke to him, but he wouldn't get in a lift with me. He just wouldn't get into a lift that had me in.
That's him. Yeah.
It was not frightening. I mean, he was an important person.
Yeah.
I wasn't. Weird.
No, he is weird, though, with all due respect.